In this lab, we're going to examine the coatings on different optics. We have 3 different optics with various coatings on them, and a relatively simple setup. The only real device we're going to use is this white light LED, and we're going to mount the LED in a V-block so we don't have to hold it. And we're going to examine some other common sources like a mag light and a special colored LED flashlight. And the way we're going to look for the coating is to simply place the optic into a diverging beam and look at the reflected light. The first sample we're going to look at is going to be an uncoated sample. And one way we can tell that it's uncoated is by looking at one side and then turning the optic over and looking at the other side. And we see no difference in color, and we also see no difference in the type of reflection around the sides. We see no difference in the shape of the shadow that it casts on the wall. And you can see a little bit of shadow on my finger there, but the actual optic itself has no difference in reflection. And that's important to note because you can see things like tooling marks that were made during the coating process or edge effects of the coating itself. So here we're going to show an optic that's obviously coated, and we'll put that in the light's beam path. And you can see this optic has 2 different shadows that it's creating. It's creating a larger shadow that's kind of a dim gray, and then a smaller shadow that's a blue color. And the color indicates that it's likely a coated optic, and the fact that the larger shadow is gray indicates to me that the back surface, the surface away from the light source, is the coated surface. And we're going to flip that around to verify. And as we turn that around, we see that the blue shadow is now the larger shadow, and the grayer shadow, or the white light reflecting shadow, is actually the smaller shadow. So that tells me now that the coated surface is towards the light, which makes sense because we flipped it around. So that tells me that this surface of the optic is coated and the back surface is likely uncoated. Now if we look at another optical element, we see that this optic gives off a colorful coating where we can see different colors of magenta and green in that coating. And if we flip it around, we actually see similar colors. And if we look closely at the edges, we can actually see some tooling marks in the edges. And those tooling marks were likely where the optic was placed on the rails in the coating deposition chamber. So we've looked at this with a white light LED. We can also use different optical sources, such as a mag light. One of the reasons an LED is nice is because it has a uniform distribution. You can see the distribution of the mag light here actually shows up in the reflected light, but also the color from the coating comes through very clearly, even using something as simple as a mag light. There's the coated optic, and here's the uncoated optic. Both sides look identical for the uncoated optic. And here we have a special LED flashlight, and this LED flashlight actually changes colors. So this might be nice if you're looking for different spectral effects in your coating. There's a white and a red, a green, and a blue light coming out of that LED. So if we turn on the white light, we can look at the different coatings and we can see what colors might be more strongly reflected. There's the red light reflection, the green light reflection, and the blue light reflection. And if you're interested in what colors were more strongly reflected, you could even put an optical power meter in the beam path to see which colors gave the strongest reflections. This experiment can also be done with a laser as the source, or it can be done with other spectral sources you might have, such as individual colored LEDs. For instance, if we look at this coated samples, we recall that the shadow in white light was blue, so that gives the strong blue shadow. And if I look at the reflection in white light again, you see the blue component, and the red reflection is actually significantly weaker than the other colors that you see. So this is the way that we've determined not only which side the coatings are, but what colors the coatings are for these 3 optics, and you can do this with any optic you choose.